All right. Hello and welcome everyone to the Pinky Promise Tour with Dr. Silas Rao. Today's event is co-hosted by Veg Michigan and Dearborn Heights Libraries. Dr. Rao was planning on speaking to you all in person this month, but with the pandemic, we've kind of had to transition this tour into a virtual tour using Zoom. So we're very glad that you can join us. I'm going to hand it over to Dr. Rao. He's a systems engineer, film producer, author, founder of Climate Healers and the Vegan World 2026 project. After his presentation, we'll be opening up for Q&A and discussion. And thank you, everyone. Dr. Rao.
Thank you so much, Benjamin and Suzanne. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Let me see if I can start sharing. So today I'm going to talk to you about healing the planet and healing ourselves. I mean, originally I had framed it as preventing our extinction, but I think I want to be a little bit more positive. And so I call it. We are in a very interesting period in human history. You know, I really see this as a transitional phase in which we are going to change who we really are. So we are now faced with this choice. So the two paths before us, you know, and which path we take is up to us. And no matter what our choices are, the planet will heal itself. So healing the earth is really not a primary concern, but it turns out that if we consciously start healing the earth ourselves and do that by healing ourselves, then we minimize our own suffering. So whereas the earth, you know, it doesn't matter to the earth if we suffer more or less. And life has been going on for 3.5 billion years, and life will continue beyond us. So it's the only question for us is, do we want to be part of it, right? So I'm going to talk to you today about transformations as opposed to change. So let me put it in slideshow mode. So is that visible? Okay. Yeah, so Tracy Martin had written a book called Sustainable in Stilettos, and it's about the fashion industry, and in which she said, change is inevitable, but transformation is intentional. So she makes the subtle distinction between change and transformation. Change is something that Earth is going to force on us. Nature is going to force on us, whether we like it or not. So like COVID-19 was a change that happened to us. Transformation is something that we choose to do ourselves in response. And we can actually transform in anticipation of future changes that might happen to us. So transformation is something that we have control over, whereas change is something that we don't have control over. Okay, so that's the distinction. So I'm going to be talking to you about transformation today, not change. And I'm going to be talking about exponential transformations. And Professor Albert Bartlett had said that the greatest shortcoming of the human race is our inability to understand the exponential function. So at any given point in time, we assume that whatever is happening to us will continue happening linearly, even though our history is full of exponential transformations, exponential changes that happen to us, okay? Or exponential changes that we did ourselves. So that's transformations. So I'm going to break this up into 4 sections. So first I'll talk about the background and context, and then I'll give you examples of exponential transformations that have happened in the last 100 years. So we can at least remember some of these things. So we know that it has happened to us. And I'll show you why we are in the middle of one right now, okay? And to achieve that and to make sure that this exponential transformation carries through to its logical conclusion, we need to transform our stories And I'll show you what the stories are that we need to transform. And we need to transform our game. And the primary game I'm going to be talking about is the game of money. Okay? So with those two things, we can actually transform who we are, and then we can get to a post-pandemic vegan world. So background. So I'm going to be talking about personal transformation in order to achieve social change. And Mahatma Gandhi was one of the pioneers in this area. He thought about this a lot, and he actually was an intuitive, he had a great intuitive understanding of how social change happens, even though he was not a social scientist. He was a lawyer, actually. So he said, be the change you want to see in the world. That's a paraphrasing of what he said. But basically what he meant by that is that there is no social change without personal transformation. Okay, so don't listen to anyone who says, it's the system that needs to change, so don't bother trying to change people personally and all that. No, no, no. No social change happens without personal transformation. And so he actually showed that. He actually convinced the people of India to change themselves in order to achieve independence from the British. So he did that in the Khadi movement in the 20th century, in the early 20th century. So he landed in India in 1914, and you can see him dressed like a lawyer. He was wearing a suit and tie. And then he spent the next few years traveling the villages of India, talking to people, understanding the situation. Because you see, he had spent most of his adult life, he went to England to get his degree in law. And then he moved to South Africa, and he was practicing law in South Africa. So he wasn't in India for a long time. So he came to India in 1914, and his intent was to help India achieve independence. That was his goal. So then he traveled the villages of India, and then he started what is known as the Khadi movement in 1919. And that movement, he asked the people of India to change their clothes. So you can see him in 1920 wearing Khadi clothes. So these are clothes made by Indians in India. So his bright idea was to get the people of India to change their clothes, to stop buying British clothes, and to start just buying local clothes made by Indians in India. And he made that a badge of honor. So he even said, I consider it my duty to induce people by every honest means to wear Khadi. And his goal was to get people of India to realize that they are self-sufficient. They don't need to depend on the British. Okay? They said they can be self-sufficient. They can basically use the riches of India to support themselves. And eventually, then the British will leave India. Okay? So this was a personal transformation that he was getting people of India to do in order to achieve a social change. And by 1930, he had bankrupted the textile mills in Manchester. And the British government was on its knees begging to negotiate with him. So they imposed a salt tax on India. They said, we're not getting any revenues from clothing, because that was the largest industry in England at that time. So let's get some revenues from the Indians through tax, through salt, because no Indian can live without salt, right? So that was their idea. So they imposed this draconian salt tax, and Gandhi marched to the ocean in 1930. This was his salt satyagraha. And he went and made salt from the ocean water, and he took a bit of it and ate it, and he said, I'm not paying a single paisa for this. I'm not paying your tax. Of course, they threw him in jail, and then they negotiated with him, and then you can see what happened. By 1947, India was independent. So the vegan movement, to me, is the exact equivalent of the Khadi movement. The vegan movement is the Khadi movement of the 21st century, and it is global. It's not just in one country. So throughout the world, people are going vegan. This is the personal transformation that we need to do in order to achieve a social change. Okay? And this movement has all the ingredients of the Khadi movement. It is a personal transformation that people do. And in the process, we are impacting the largest industry in the world at this time. with the largest footprint on Earth. Okay? It uses up almost half of the Earth, which is the animal agriculture industry. So we are literally taking the oxygen away from that industry by going vegan. Okay? And so we are going to force the corporate world to negotiate with us. It is a response to Earth on fire, actually. So I use this analogy of the house on fire. So imagine that your house is on fire. Wouldn't you say that the first thing you need to do is to stop throwing fuel on the fire? And that is veganism. And then you have to persuade your fellow residents to stop throwing fuel on the fire. That is vegan advocacy. So to me, veganism is not an extraordinary step that we are taking. It is the least we can do, okay? Given that our Earth is on fire, that our planet is on fire, that our fellow human beings are being impacted by it. And the Earth is literally on fire because of animal agriculture. These are the fires that were set between May 1st and May 10th of 2019, just to prevent forests from coming back, so that you can maintain grazing land for animals. Okay? Because we do slash and burn to prevent forests from coming back. And this is why the grazing lands of the world store just 2% of the land carbon, even though they are 37% of the land area of the planet. The slash and burn that we do to maintain grazing lands is responsible for that. So we are literally setting the Earth on fire for animal agriculture. So when we go vegan, we are saying no more are we going to set fire to the Earth. We might as well, we want the forests to come back. It is not being addressed in the UN, you know. And the UN identified 3 major environmental problems in 1992 at the Rio Summit. The first was climate change. And the goal of the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change was to stabilize greenhouse gas concentrations in the atmosphere at a level that would prevent dangerous human interference in the climate system. Okay? And so there, they frame it as a fossil fuel issue, even though animal agriculture is the leading cause of climate change. And they know it. I mean, in fact, the data that I have in our white paper came from the UN, from IPCC's reports. Okay? So we're just taking their own reports and showing that based on that, we can show that animal agriculture is the leading cause of climate change. And yet they don't address that. They formed the Convention on Biological Diversity. This was the second problem they identified, which is that species are dying out. And so its purpose was to conserve biological diversity on the planet and to ensure the sustainable use of its genetic resources. And the leading cause of biological diversity loss is animal agriculture. And so this convention has been slowly degraded in the UN. They used to meet once a year. Now they meet once every 2 years. All their objectives that they set for halting biodiversity loss by 2010 and so on have not been met by any other countries, but no one talks about it. So there is no oxygen for it, you know, in the UN process. The third convention they formed was the UN Convention to Combat Desertification. And desertification is also caused by animal agriculture. The slash and burn for maintaining grazing lands, eventually things stop growing and the desert just moves. So the desert just grows. So every year we are losing about 20 million acres of land to desert. And it's mainly the Sahara that's just growing. So the existing deserts are just growing. And this convention also used to meet once a year in the beginning. And now it's meeting once every 2 years, even though none of the objectives of this convention are being met. Because there is no seriousness among the countries, among the nations to actually meet it. So the reason it's been dealt like this, you know, I mean, our leaders are not really dealing with our environmental problems, honestly. It's because right at the outset in 1992, President George H.W. Bush went to the UN and he said the American way of life is non-negotiable. So they have used that to mean that our way of consumption is non-negotiable, that our consumerist lifestyle has to be maintained. But George Bush also said think of every challenge we face, and the solution to each is education. So even for this, the solution is education. Okay? Even for this problem, it is, if we tell people exactly what's going on, people wake up and say, hey, I'll do what you said. It's about teaching people. And I look at this as, we have a specification and an implementation of the specification. So I'm an engineer, so I look at things from an engineering perspective. Engineers always work with a specification, and then we try to implement it so that it meets the specifications. And if you look at the American experiment, okay, the specifications were amazing. We wanted to create a system of governance in which all men are created equal. And yet we have implemented one of the most unequal societies in human history. We said we have the inalienable right to life, and we have been at continuous war for the last 200 years. So we have created the greatest killing machine in human history, especially for the animals. We say we have the inalienable right to liberty, and we have the most incarcerated population in human history. And from the pursuit of happiness, we have implemented the most medicated population in human history. I mean, almost half of Americans are on antidepressants or anti-anxiety medications or on illegal drugs on a regular basis. So this is exactly what Dr. Martin Luther King was talking about when he said, I have a dream. His dream was that we would actually implement what we said we were going to implement. We would have a society in which all men are created equal. We would have the inalienable right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness built into our society. But from that dream, we have created this, the nightmare that we are in now. So anytime a specification does not meet in implementation, you can see that there is some aspect of reality that we are not facing, that we are lying to ourselves about something or the other. And that's really what happened in the Challenger disaster, right? So Challenger disaster, when Richard Feynman was asked to investigate and to understand why it happened, he said, when the engineers tell you that this O-ring will not work at a temperature below 30 degrees, you have no business launching. So the engineers had told them that this is not going to match. The specifications does not match the implementation for this particular launch conditions. It's not going to work. And yet the administrative officials said, from a marketing perspective, we cannot postpone this launch anymore. So we have to go for it. So they went for it and they blew up. And we see this time and again in engineering. As when we design something, we have to design it in alignment with the truth. If we do something that is not in alignment with the truth, it usually fails. Because nature is very strict about that. Nature is just an application of the truth. So which brings me to our current situation. You see, Dr. Anthony Fauci said, it boggles my mind how when we have so many diseases that emanate out of that unusual human-animal interface, that we don't just shut it down. Okay? The unusual human-animal interface that he's referring to was the wet market. But in reality, it is all human-animal interfaces in which the animal is being stressed is unusual. That's not something that we think of as normal in our minds. We don't want to stress animals out. But every such interface causes problems. Like not just COVID-19, but the swine flu, the mad cow disease, bird flu, Ebola, all of these came from this unusual human-animal interface where we stress our animals out. Stressed animals spawn diseases. It's very well known. I mean, Dr. Aisha Akhtar actually said that in our summit. So it's not just China's wet markets, but America's factory farming are also spawning diseases continuously. So every time we consume animals or we use animals for, we stress animals out. It could be in a lab experiment or in a factory farm. That's the potential for another disease to jump. And it is serious because, I mean, coronavirus, COVID-19 has swamped our healthcare systems. In New York, the daily deaths reached 519 at the peak of the pandemic. And normally, from all causes, we get about 150 deaths. So clearly, this was an unusual event. And the leading cause of COVID-19 is animal foods. I mean, leading causes of COVID-19 death is animal foods. So the pre-existing conditions that cause people to die from COVID-19 are heart disease, lung disease, diabetes, and high blood pressure. And these four are among the 14 leading causes of death that can be even mitigated and even reversed with the whole foods plant-based vegan diet. So when we don't tell people that if they just go on a whole food plant-based vegan diet, that they could start reversing these pre-existing conditions, we are actually abusing our power, because we have that knowledge in us. We have to tell them. So when our doctors don't tell them, when the coronavirus task force does not tell people that if you just go on a whole food plant-based vegan diet, you can literally reverse these things and therefore become more immune to the infection, they're actually abusing their power, in my opinion. And this is also the reason for, the number one reason for climate change and the number one thing we can do for climate change. If you look at all of the IPCC's projections for climate change, they assume that we will continue consuming as usual, okay? And that we will do something on top of that consumption to alleviate. So it's a little bit like addressing the symptoms of our disease and not addressing the root cause of the disease. Okay, so all of the scenarios that they studied, RCP 8.5, which really means that in the year 2100, you will have 8.5 watts per square meter of heating on Earth. And today we have 2.3 watts per square meter of heating. So we're heating it about roughly 4 times as much as we're heating today. And then of course the temperature is going to go through the roof and literally we're going to die, right? So that's business as usual. So then they look at scenarios where we mitigate some of that. RCP 6.0 is like doing a bypass surgery on the Earth. So to me, it's like a patient. The Earth has heart disease, diabetes, and cancer. And it's coming to us and saying, you know, cure me. And we are saying, okay, I can do bypass surgery for your heart disease, or I can do bypass surgery and chemotherapy so you can address your heart disease and your cancer, or we can do bypass surgery, chemotherapy, and kidney transplant. So we are not telling the Earth that we could live differently, and therefore we can reverse all of these conditions that the Earth has, which is the whole food plant-based lifestyle change. And if we did that, I really believe that we can reduce our heating by the year 2100, reduce it to 1 watt per square meter from where we are today. And the IPCC even said that the other scenarios that they considered are really inapplicable because there is a do not cross line above which the Earth will take over. And there's nothing we can do. And that's going to happen by the year 2030, okay, in the current scenario. So they're saying if we don't change our lifestyle by 2030, the methane is going to be spewing out of the Arctic and all kinds of positive feedback loops are going to kick in, and then the climate is going to get out of our control. So we have no choice but to transform our lives. And if you look at the 2 major engines of planetary destruction today, the killing machine and the burning machine, the killing machine is represented by animal agriculture and the burning machine represented by fossil fuels and industry. Even from a greenhouse gas perspective and taking all the data from the IPCC itself, we can show that you need to power down the killing machine first. Okay? And so because the IPCC has told us that from our CO2 emissions, we are heating it up by 1.68 watts per square meter. From our methane, nitrous oxide, and other emissions, we are heating it up by another 1.7 watts per square meter. And from the aerosols, the sulfur dioxide and the coolants that you're putting into the atmosphere, we are cooling the Earth by 1.1 watts per square meter. So overall, we're heating it up by 2.3 watts per square meter. Okay? So then you look at, okay, what does each machine do? what does the killing machine do? What does the burning machine do on an annual basis? So that if we shut down the burning machine today, what is the impact? If we shut down the killing machine today, what is the impact? So if you shut down the burning machine today, you will reduce 87% of the CO2 you're adding to the atmosphere every year. So that's going to reduce our heating by 0.027 watts per square meter. And this again, these formulas are straight from the IPCC. It will reduce 23% of the methane that you're emitting into the atmosphere, so which will stop another 0.022 watts per square meter of heating. But then you'll also reduce 100% of the SO2, the sulfur dioxide that you're putting into the atmosphere, which is going to stop the cooling of 0.95 watts per square meter. So which means if we have a magic wand and we're able to shut down the burning machine today, we will actually heat up the earth by another 0.9 watts per square meter this year, at the end of this year. Okay? So the earth will heat up. So it'll go up to like 3.2 watts per square meter right away. So the estimate is that the temperature will go up by another 0.7 degrees Fahrenheit, okay, within 1 year. So we shouldn't be doing this. In fact, we should be shutting down the killing machine first, because the killing machine is responsible for 31% of the CO2, which is 0.009 watts per square meter, is responsible for 37% of the methane, which is going to reduce the heating by 0.035 watts per square meter this year. And it's also using up 37% of the land. So if we shut down the killing machine, we can bring back the forests on that land, and we're estimating that that will store about 34.5 gigatons of CO2 every year. So that is like cooling the earth by another 0.6 watts per square meter, which means on an annual basis, if you shut down the killing machine, you'll be cooling the earth by 0.1 watts per square meter. So the right way to power down these machines is to first power down the killing machine and then slowly shut down the burning machine. There's no question we have to shut down both machines because to get to a sustainable civilization. But it's important how we power them down. So as I said, we are using 37% of the land. This again is straight from the IPCC. Okay, so we're using 37% of the land to graze our animals, on which we only store 2% of the land carbon. So if you raise that 2% to 20% by just releasing this land back to forests, then you can literally reverse climate change. So we know that too. And if we do that, we actually benefit not just the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change and their objectives, but also the Convention on Biological Diversity, the Convention to Combat Desertification. We address all of these problems in one shot if we just shut down the killing machine, right? Because if you look at the wild animals from 10,000 years ago, their total weight was about 200 million tons. And human beings were a tiny little blip on top of that. And by 1970, we had killed about 60% of the wild animals because we took away their land. We hunted them in the ocean. So we killed them. And so their total weight decreased by 60%. And our population was equal to the population of all the wild animals that lived 10,000 years ago in terms of weight. Okay? And on top of that, we were raising farmed animals that were double our weight and who were eating 3 times as much food as we eat. Because these farmed animals were an unusual mix of very young animals. Okay? So they eat much more than their weight alone would indicate. And as far as the planet is concerned, it's what you eat that matters as far as, you know, the impact on the planet. So the farmed animals were really presenting the profile of a biomass that was triple the biomass of the wild animals that lived 10,000 years ago. And in 1970, if you recall, people were alarmed by this. They were saying, oh, the human population cannot grow anymore. So we have to stop. Otherwise, we're going to run out of food. Right? But then we found ways to come up with industrial agriculture. We started pouring all kinds of chemicals. We irrigated the land using groundwater. We did all kinds of things to grow more and more food. So we improved the photosynthetic capacity of the planet. And using that, we Another 40 years, we doubled our population. We killed another 52% of the wild animals. So they're now down by 80% compared to what they were 10,000 years ago. And then our farmed animals are now eating 9 times as much food as the wild animals were eating 10,000 years ago. So which means that if we shut down the killing machine, we can remove all this weight, this burden on the planet, okay? Or most of it. And then we'll have plenty of food to eat for us. And then we can reorganize ourselves in a different way so that our human population does not keep growing. And we can literally bring the earth back from the brink and the wild animals back from the brink, okay? So, but that's the situation we face today in terms of biodiversity loss. And I claim that this is already happening. We are already in the middle of an exponential transformation. To understand that, we have to look at past exponential transformations and position ourselves in that and see where we are today in the vegan transformation. The Khadi movement is an example. In 1919, when Gandhi started the Khadi movement, if you go and look back at the newspaper clippings from that era, people were literally laughing at him. You know, they were saying, how can you take on the mightiest empire the world has ever seen by changing your clothes? You know, it's impossible. But within 11 years, he proved that that is possible. And it was a transformation that happened exponentially. So by 1930, you know, almost everyone in India was wearing Khadi clothes. The same with the moon landing. In 1962, when President John F. Kennedy said we can put a man on the moon, people thought it was impossible. It was difficult, right? It was not a solved problem at that time. So NASA had to solve a lot of problems to put the man on the moon, but they did it. They broke down this problem into pieces, addressed each piece, solved each piece, and put it together. So it was an example of excellent engineering. And so in 7 years, we had a man on the moon. That again was an exponential transformation that happened in science and technology. And this one, I was in the middle of this. In 1995, there was an article in Newsweek saying the internet is going nowhere. Who's going to read things on the internet? Who's going to buy stuff off the internet? And you know, at that time, the author was right that it was difficult. He was a scientist, actually, Clifford Stoll, right, who said that. And he was right that the connections were poor. There were all kinds of, you know, the servers were breaking down because there was too much demand on the bandwidth. But we were working on making it more robust in the backbone. And by 2003, I overheard someone say, I cannot live without the internet. So it went from something that no one knew what it was, and they didn't know it was necessary at all, to becoming a part of our lives in 8 years. And the same with gay marriage. In 2005, I remember having dinner with a colleague who said, oh, I'm glad that Schwarzenegger, you know, vetoed gay marriage. So he was the first governor, you know, the most liberal state in America, the governor vetoed gay marriage. So he said, oh, it's never going to happen. Because even the most liberal state does not want it. And within 10 years, it was the law of the land, right? And it was an exponential change in social attitudes that happened. We all realized that they all, you know, LGBT people also deserve the same benefits that we enjoy as heterosexuals. And in 2015, I made this presentation at the AGU in the American Geophysical Union, which is the largest gathering of climate scientists in the world. So it was a joint presentation with Atul Jain and Shiji Shu of the University of Illinois. And we showed that if the whole world goes vegan, we can literally reverse climate change, okay? That we can actually store more carbon just by bringing back the original forest that used to be there on that land. We can store more carbon than we have added to the atmosphere since 1750. And this is based on IPCC climate models. So there's nothing they could dispute about it. I was just adding up the numbers and showing them, right? So climate scientists came to me and they said, yeah, you're right, you know, it's true, but it'll never happen. Because what do you mean? The world is going to go vegan? Never. Yeah, it's a pipe dream. And I knew at that point that it is going to happen. That this is how exponential transformations happen. When people see that there is a solution, there is a way out, why would we stop and do the opposite, right? So, and I saw that in the next year, in 2016, the search for the term vegan exceeded the search for the term Coca-Cola for the first time. And the vegan movement was taking off. So in 2018, Forbes reported that 70% of the world population is either reducing meat consumption or leaving meat off the table. Okay? So there is a large group of people around the world who are thinking about this and who are doing it. And in the US, there was a 600% increase in people identifying as vegans between 2014 and 2017. So that's like, like the COVID-19, like an exponential transformation. So at that rate of growth, if we just keep it going, then by 2020, it'll be another factor of 7. By 2023, a factor of 49. And by 2026, a factor of 343. Which means that all of the US will be vegan by 2026 if we just maintain that rate of growth. But of course, this is an exponential transformation that has its own saturation point, right? Just like any contagion. So we can actually do modeling on this. So this is why actually, the fact that it's going exponentially, that this is why fast food people are offering vegan options. It's not because they want to promote veganism. They have no choice because we are changing it from the bottom, from the ground up, from the grassroots. So you can model the growth of the vegan movement just like you can model COVID-19. So there are 3 ways in which people go vegan. When they talk to someone who's vegan, convinces you to go vegan. There are also people who are vegan who go back and say, I can't do it anymore. That's called recidivism. And then people who spontaneously go vegan because they just saw some movie or saw some documentary or something. So it wasn't an interaction with the vegan who did that. And because of the spontaneity factor, veganism is a movement that's not going to go away. Okay? And so then we can model it, just like we model COVID-19, and we can show that the residual vegan, that the rate at which vegan movement grows is going to be determined by the spontaneity ratio and the residualism ratio, which is the opposite. Residualism ratio is the inverse of the reproductive ratio. Okay, so you can analyze it just like they're analyzing the COVID-19. And in this case, we want to maximize this contagion. Okay, we want to make sure it grows so that we have a sustainable world at the end of it. So you can analyze this and you can see that the residual Carnism at the end, so which is n star over p, p is the total population, is proportional to the residualism ratio. So it's actually less than the residualism ratio at the end. So which means that in order to maximize our the growth of the vegan movement, we have to minimize the residualism. We have to make sure that the veganism is stable. When people go vegan, they're doing it for an internal reason. So they have an internal motivation for it. So then they won't go away from it. So the residual carnism in the population is a function of the spontaneity ratio and the residualism ratio. And you can see the lower the residualism ratio, the less people that are going to be carnist at the end of it. So this is what we try to do. I mean, we are trying to create this 21-day program in which we are telling people to watch these documentaries so that when they go vegan, they have all the information they need to stay there. So we are trying to minimize the residualism ratio with this 21-day program because we have them watch What the Health and Cowspiracy, the Sustainability Secret, Countdown to Year Zero, and Prayer for Compassion. Okay. And then we are also writing an app that would help people go spontaneously vegan. So we want to make healthy, nutritious vegan food literally free. So we want to subsidize that. So that's the buy one, gift one meal program that we are creating. So just to paraphrase Gandhi, uh, I say I consider it my duty to induce people by every honest means to go vegan. So he said that about Khadi, and I'm saying that about veganism. And because I think it is just as important to get more and more people to go vegan now as it was important for Gandhi to get people to wear Khadi in India. And to do that, we need to transform our stories. Okay? Right now, we tell a story in which the planet is being destroyed by human beings and we really don't belong. I mean, it's a story in which we really denigrate human beings. And I think that needs to stop, because we cannot inspire people to transform by telling them that they're bad. So we have to tell a story in which we do belong exactly as we are. And that's what we try to do in this. So I say, it's the equivalent of, imagine that, Michelangelo, after he sculpted David, you discover him trying to kill himself with a hammer and a chisel. And you stop him and you say, why are you trying to kill yourself with a hammer and a chisel? Because he's banging his hammer into the chisel and into his stomach, right? So you stop him and you say, why are you trying to kill yourself? And he says, look at the mess I've made on the floor with the pieces of marble. How am I going to clean that up with a hammer and a chisel? Wouldn't you say, you need a different set of tools and we can clean it up? There is a way to clean it up. And then we can all enjoy the David you created. And that's exactly the situation that we are in as a species. We have done something amazing that no other species could have done. We have done something amazing, but we are using the same tools we used to do this in order to clean up. And we never clean up like that. Okay? We have to use a different set of tools to clean up. And once we clean up, we will have a beautiful planet to thrive on. Okay? So this tells a story in which we belong, just like the elephant belongs. The elephant at first glance may seem like he's being destructive because he's breaking branches of trees, throwing the branch away. And you think the elephant is just destroying the forest, right, by doing this. And then when you look closely, you realize that the elephant, wherever she broke branches of trees, that's where the sunlight streams and nourishes the underbrush. So everything in nature has a role. Every species has a role. And I say we are no exception. So we are not any different from any other species. And the role that we have been playing is to be the climate regulators of planet Earth. Okay? So literally, if we hadn't been doing what we did over the last 10,000 years, the Earth would have been in an ice age by now. And we stopped that. Right? We stopped that. So this is we have built this climate regulation mechanism on planet Earth. And now we are trying to kill ourselves using the same tools we used to create that mechanism. So we did that because the Earth has gone through over 100 ice ages in the last 3 million years. It goes through an ice age and then comes out for a brief period, a warm period, and then goes back into an ice age again. For most of the time, the Earth was in an ice age, okay, in the last 3 million years. The temperature is over 10 degrees Celsius less than what it is during a warm period, about 20 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay? So in the current ice age, in the previous ice age, we came out of it 10,000 years ago, and you can see that something amazing happened. So the ice age, the warm period was very similar to the warm period that happened 3 ice ages ago. But in the current warm period, we maintained the temperature. It didn't go down. Okay? So it didn't go down because we cut down forests and we raised animals, and when we grew rice, so we put a whole bunch of methane into the atmosphere, we put a whole bunch of CO2 into the atmosphere, and we heated up the Earth. And we kept the temperature constant for 10,000 years. So the actual temperature was constant for 10,000 years, even though if we had followed what happened 3 ice ages ago, we would have been in an ice age 5,000 years ago. We would have gone into glaciation 5,000 years ago. So by the time the industrial era began, we had increased the temperature by A, okay, which is actually greater than B. That's the increase in temperature that's happened since the industrial era began. So this is about 1.5 degrees Celsius, A, and B is about 1 degree Celsius. So we increased the temperature by 1.5 degrees, prevented the Earth from going back to another ice age, and then we increased it by another 1 degree Celsius. In the process, we built all the tools and technologies we need to understand what we have done so that we can now become conscious climate regulators of the planet. So we have a choice right now. So the choice that Rediman is showing in his book is that we'll continue doing what we're doing. So we'll basically, using the same tools, we'll kill ourselves off, right? That's Michelangelo trying to commit suicide. And then we will all die off, and then the Earth will go back to another ice age. So that's his projection. He wrote a book like that, right? Saying this is what we're doing. And I'm saying, no, we don't have to do that. We actually have a choice. We can actually go vegan, bring back the forests and all the grasslands that we cut. So which means we are using a different set of tools to do this, where we are actually supporting people to regenerate forests. So that's going to become our main task. Okay? And when we do that, we can cool the earth, heal the earth, bring back the animals, and we can then give the control over to our children and grandchildren and say, your job is to maintain this stable climate on the planet for all of other life, for all life to thrive. Okay? So that's your job. So we are now serving the animals as opposed to animals serving us. So it's the opposite of what we are doing with the animals right now. So this is the metamorphosis that's happening, the vegan metamorphosis. And we have been literally put into the chrysalis phase of this metamorphosis because of the COVID-19 pandemic. So we've been put into a phase where we have to think about who we are as a species. We have to tell different stories about ourselves and then wake up as butterflies. Okay? So that's the vegan metamorphosis. We started off as in the caterpillar phase where we were consuming like crazy. And then in COVID-19, we got put into this chrysalis. And at first we got angry. We went around buying guns, and stocking up on things, getting angry. That's a fear zone. And then we get into the learning zone where we recognize the wisdom in nature, realize that we are part of something much, much larger that has a lot of intelligence that we don't give credit for, and learn that only the truth can save us because it's only the truth that's sustainable. So accept that you're in the chrysalis phase, and therefore we have to transform our civilization. And then when we all go vegan, we get into the vegan growth zone, where we see how best to serve others, how to adapt to the changes that are happening in the chrysalis phase, inventory our gifts so that we see how best to serve others. So imagine the butterfly and figure out how we are going to serve the butterfly when we come out. So that is the phase we are going through, and we have a good shot at becoming a butterfly species when we get out of this. And to do that, we have to transform our game. Okay? Because the game of money that we are playing is forcing us to be in the caterpillar phase and forcing us to revert back to the caterpillar phase if we continue with the same game. So as Buckminster Fuller said, if you want to teach people a new way of thinking, don't bother trying to teach them. Instead, give them a tool, the use of which will lead to new ways of thinking. And the tool is the game. So the game that we play allows us to coordinate our actions among billions of us and become a very powerful species. Okay? So the game of money has made us very powerful. But the game of money has made us very powerful as a destructive species. So we are very good at destroying things, but we are not very good at creating things right now with this game. So the game is, there are a few people who have wrested control of our money system. So they have the right to create new money in the current system. And based on that, they create money in the form of loans. And based on that, they are accumulating money for themselves, right? And so the game of money that we play today is concentrating wealth in fewer and fewer people. And so if you look at even the big corporations of the world, they are all controlled by the same 4 financial holding companies. And the financial holding companies don't have to report who owns them because they're private companies. So, but there are books written about it. And so, people are speculating that about 50 families, 60 families own all these companies. And so, so the game of money is a game in which we are made to feel like we have power, we have democracy, but it's a pretend game. Okay, ultimately, all power is with these 50 families that are running these companies. Because the game itself is based on debt. So it's based on controlling people through debt. So you get a mortgage for your home, and then you're stuck having to pay that back, which means you have to work for it. Because all money is created in the form of debt in the current game. So you put $100 in a bank, the bank lends out $90 in the form of a loan. It only has to keep $10 as reserve. And then when that $90 comes back into the bank, they keep $9 and lend out $81. So like that, from the original $100, they loan out $900. Okay? And so then they create money for the loan, but they don't create money for the interest for the loan. So it makes us compete with each other for the interest. Okay? So it creates competition in the system, and then it creates an impetus for growth in the system. So if you keep growing the system, there'll be more and more money coming in, and therefore there'll be enough for each of us to return back the money that we borrowed. So this game does not work if this system starts shrinking, economic activity starts shrinking, which is what is happening in the COVID-19 crisis. Okay? So the economy is shrinking, more and more people who don't have jobs. And so now, if you continue playing this old game, it's going to create a lot more hunger. So they're estimating that twice as many people will be hungry because of COVID-19 at the end of this year than they were at the end of 2019. So the game itself needs to be transformed for us to overcome this. Because in the game, the only way to earn money in the game is to beg, borrow, work as a slave for someone, or you have to become creative. And the very few people have this creative ability to make money. Okay? So most people are stuck in the first 3 modes. And if you don't have a job, sorry, you have to beg. So this game discourages natural abundance. The way this game is created, the game itself, the way it's played, if you have too much supply for the same demand, the price plummets and there is no money being made. So which means you have to create an artificial scarcity in order to make money in the game. So if you have plenty of pure water, clean water, nobody makes money on the water. So you have to make sure that the clean water is rare. And so if you pollute all the rivers and streams, then people will pay you for clean water. Okay? So that's how they make money in the system. It promotes artificial scarcity. I mean, what we do with food is just instructive. It shows you how we create artificial scarcity. We're actually extracting 9 billion tons of food from the planet. Okay? And this data comes from the IPCC, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. So we extract 9 billion tons of food, even though we only eat about 1.5 billion tons of food every year. Most of that food is fed to our animals. And our animals are eating 7.27 billion tons of food, and they provide 0.19 billion tons of food by the time it comes to our plate. So there is a 40-to-1 reduction in food from what the animals eat to what they provide us. So I think of this as, imagine mother making 46 plates of food and leaving it in the fridge for us to eat. And there are only 8 of us children. Okay? And then mother goes away and says, okay, you take care of it. I've given you plenty of food. So the eldest brother then takes 40 plates of food and then makes his younger sister go and feed it to the animals. And then he tells his other younger sister, go and extract 1 plate of food from the animals. So from the 46 plates of food, you now have only 7 plates of food. And then he says, oh, we have only 7 plates of food. There are 8 of us. So someone has to go hungry. So he tells one sister, you have to go hungry. And it's the same person who goes hungry every meal, right? So that's exactly how we are sharing food among ourselves as a species. And surely we can do better than that. And when we say, surely we can do better than that, we can all go plant-based, the eldest brother says, well, then how is that person going to eat? How is my sister going to eat if she doesn't go do that work with the animals? She won't have any money to buy the food if she doesn't work. So it's the game of money that's promoting this artificial scarcity. And so at some point, we need to ask the eldest brother, hey, who made you the boss of this place? Who made you take the 40 plates of food and give it to the animals, I think we can eat that 46, we can share that 46 plates of food among ourselves and actually return some food back to the animals so that they can thrive as well. Okay? So let's create a system in which we can share the food we have, the abundance we have, and in which we foster abundance. We don't penalize abundance. And in this different game, we can all be playing different roles in this different game in which everyone thrives, right? So we can create a game like that. We can imagine a game like that and create that. Because this current game is based on lies. And this is why it's blowing up in our faces. It's based on telling people that you have to eat meat. If you don't eat meat, you're not going to get protein. That's an outright lie. We know that, right? So it's making that a necessity and making people eat that we create this artificial demand for that food. So by lying to people, and at the same time, we know that by eating that food, they're going to get sick with COVID-19, with diabetes, with heart disease, whatever. And then we'll make money off of them when they get sick by giving them pharmaceuticals and heart surgery and all this stuff. So we have created a system in which we literally subsidize bad foods to make people get sick and then use that as an economic activity. It promotes pouring toxins into the environment, animal foods are subsidized, and then chronic diseases are being used to make money of people. So we make money off of death, disease, and destruction. And then we wonder why the planet is dying. And it promotes colonialism, racism, and sexism. This is built into the game. Okay? Unless you change the game, you'll never address these problems. We are pretending to address these problems if you don't change the game. You'll never do it unless you change the game. So that's why when we transform our game, we'll be attempting the greatest transformation in human history. So literally, we'll create a game in which everything on the right-hand side of this 7 core shifts will happen automatically in the new game. Okay? So the game, currently, we have a choice between either go extinct or transform. So a system of normalized violence or a system of normalized non-violence. Whether we remain a predator species or we become a caretaker species. Whether we call ourselves Homo sapiens, which is the wise hominid, or we call ourselves Homo ahimsa, which is a non-violent hominid. So sapiens is a characteristic. I mean, we are telling ourselves that we are wise. And I've never met anyone who's wise who goes around saying I'm wise. Okay? So this is really a Trump-like statement we are making. This is why Trump is a perfect head for us at this moment. Okay? He's showing us who we really are as a species. And he's asking us to transform to a Homo ahimsa. Ahimsa is you're describing your character. You're saying, I am non-violent. We are non-violent as a species. So that's how we become a caretaker species. We don't eat who we take care of. Okay? We don't kill them and exploit them when we take care of someone. So the 7 core shifts that need to happen is from speciesism, colonialism, racism, ableism, patriarchy, which works out to scrap, to veganism and radical equality. From diseases and divisions for humanity to health and unity for humanity. From destruction and pollution of the planet to remediation and regeneration of the planet. From death and cruelty to animals to love and kindness for animals. From a culture of consumption to a culture of compassion. From a mindset of scarcity to a mindset of abundance, because we do live in an abundant world. We are creating an artificial scarcity from an abundant world. Okay? And from this current game that we are playing, the money-driven economy, to a service-driven economy. And everything on the left-hand side is dictated by the game we are playing. And every one of us is playing a role in that game, the game of money. Okay? We are all playing roles in that game. So we need to create a new game in which you automatically do everything on the right-hand side of it. So it's a game played by vegans, literally, right? It's a game played by vegans. And when we play this new game, we automatically create everything on the right-hand side. Okay? And we'll create a service-driven economy. And then we invite more and more people to join us. So in this game, money flows to us automatically from the bottom up, as opposed to flowing from the top down as a trickle. Money comes from the bottom up because money is really a measure of our own time and activities. What do we do with our time? What do we do with our activities? How are we going to spend our time? Right? That's what money is. It's a measure of that. So in this, money is pouring into the heart of our account, every individual account, and some of it flows into the pocket of our account where we get to use it. And it's a measure of the ecological footprint of humanity. So you have to have a true cost of every product. And based on that, we need to use this as a way of accounting for our ecological footprint. Okay? And then some of it flows into the community chest, which becomes like the automatic tax that we do. So the community gets to use this for its purposes, which could be building roads or whatever we need to do together as a community. So in this architecture, the community also has a very similar account where it comes into the heart. Some of it flows into its pocket that it can automatically use. Some of it goes into its community chest, which should be someone, could be a nation, or it could be a city, or it could be a state, depending on how we do this hierarchy, right? Or it could be an ecosystem. So we could be dividing ourselves up into ecosystems in which we govern each other based on that. So in this game, if you want to increase the flow to your pocket, you have to do acts of compassion. So basically, the automatic flow that comes into you is for your use, for any reason whatsoever. And the rest, you can do acts of compassion and you'll get more into your account for doing that act of compassion. And if you don't do any acts of compassion, then the heart fills up. And when the heart fills up, there is more and more money flowing into the community chest. So literally people who say, if you say, well, what if people just sit there and watch TV and don't do anything? Well, they'll be paying more tax to the community if they do that. And then you have to go and ask them, hey, what's wrong with you? Why aren't you participating in your community? Because when we are healthy, we want to participate in our community. We want to help out. Yeah? So when someone is not acting for the good of the whole, that means that they are not healthy. So creating health for ourselves is about creating health for the earth. So literally when we become healthy, we automatically go and help the earth. So the system of earning money, in this it's about being compassionate, doing acts of compassion to others. This is what healthy people do. We go and plant trees, or we take care of animals. This is what we do when we have something to give, right? And this new Aquarius system has to be a completely open source economy and ecology. It cannot be based on, my property, my this, my that, this is my idea, and I need to make profit out of my idea. When we have a system like that, we are going to be in the old game. This new game, every new idea is a contribution to the community. So it has to be based on an open source economy and ecology so that people can audit what's happening. they can tell that you're telling the truth. Or if you're not telling the truth, they can find out right away, and they can tell you how to fix it. So with that game, with the new Aquarius game, you'll see that everything which we wanted to do in the 7 core shifts, if you agree that needs to happen, will happen. So by playing a new game, we automatically create a new species for ourselves. But we have to choose to play this game. It's a choice we have, I mean, in the Bhagavad Gita, God, which is a dialogue between God and man, God tells man, everything happens for the best, everything happens because I wanted it to happen. And I love you so much that I set you free even from me, and you're free to choose. So he said, you are free to choose at any point in time, but the outcome is predetermined by me. So we are going to get there, okay? It's how much suffering are you going to take before you get there? That's under our control. We will have a thriving planet. We will have a thriving planet with or without human beings. So if you want a thriving planet with human beings, we need to act now. And if you don't act now, yeah, life will take maybe another 1,000,000 years to figure out new species. But life will thrive eventually. So we need to make this choice. So I hope we all choose to transform to a caretaker species today. And thank you all very much for giving me this forum. And there's more details in the books that I've written, Carbon Dharma and Carbon Yoga. They're available for free on our website, so you can read them. And thank you for being part of the Pinky Promise Tour. And I'm grateful to all these organizations that are supporting the tour, making it happen, so that I can tell this story and hopefully get more and more people to buy into it. And I'll stop sharing.
Great presentation. Thank you, Dr. Rao.
Yeah, that was awesome.
I'd like to open it up to discussion for anyone who has any questions or comments. Feel free to either add them to the chat or turn on yourself. Go for it, Tom.
Sure. Yeah, it was a wonderful presentation. Thank you very much. Actually, where I'm working now at Veg Michigan, we are working on a big campaign. Hold on one second. So we're working on a campaign, and when you touched on the transforming your story, that's what we've been working with a number of researchers because the campaign is going to be focused on getting college students to eat more plant-based options and kind of teach them. And what we have been learning in this recent research is that, people don't want to be told that what their current behavior is wrong, and they don't want to be made to feel bad about what they're doing. So we're looking at a new approach to messaging, working on more social norms where things are changing for the better for veganism, and focus on the good things that are happening. And then as people see social norms are changing, they kind of gravitate to the social norms. But I was just wondering if you could share any thoughts you might have about how should we, for people who are new to plant-based eating, how should we, maybe share that message where we're not going to make them feel bad, but we want to get our message across to people.
Yeah, that is why we were looking at this from a very holistic perspective. And now what kind of stories that we tell? It's important to tell the right stories. So we tell them, look, we were doing something important for the planet, which is climate regulation for the planet, right? And now we have to transform because this is the time that we are we can see all the signs saying this is the time to change. You have done with the caterpillar phase, and you have to move on to the butterfly phase, right? Because we are the only species that used to be a prey species, like 500,000 years ago. We were a prey species. We can't run too fast. We can't climb too well. We don't have big claws. We don't have big teeth. So we were easy prey for a lot of predators. And this forced us to come up with technology, come up with weapons that we can kill from a distance, right? We banded together, created tribes so that we can be stronger together. And by doing that, we became a predator species. So we went from a top prey species to a top predator species. And we killed a lot of animals in the process, okay, as a predator species. And we are still like one of the top predators on the planet, right? We are the top predator on the planet. And now we are being called to become a caretaker species. So, and if we don't do that, the writing is on the wall. You're going to be dead too, right? We are all going to die out. As we kill all the animals, we are going to die. There's no question. So this is why I think we need to tell a story in which we are transforming. This is part of a larger plan that nature always had, right? Whether you want to call that nature or God or whatever, depending on who your higher power is. Just say there is a higher power that's totally in control. And we are just puppets underneath that, right? And so we have to tell a story in which we belong exactly as we are. And as part of that, we are changing. And that, when we tell a story like that, and I also use my personal story as how I came across this, was because initially I thought we were a horrible species. That we were killing everything and we are better off being dead. Right? That's what I thought of myself. And then when my granddaughter was born, I held her in my arms for the first time when she was a month old. And she looked up at me and smiled. And I said, she belongs exactly as she is. How can you tell me that that is a mistake? That she's a mistake. No. So we must belong exactly as we are, and we are not telling the right story. Because that's how we coordinate our actions as a species. We tell stories. We tell stories, and based on that, we act. Right? But whichever story we believe in, we act according to that. So we have to tell a story in which we belong exactly as we are, and part of that we are transforming. And that makes it a very exciting time that we are in, as opposed to a dangerous time that we are in. So it makes us feel like we are accomplishing something. It's like the moon landing, right? You start off by saying, oh, I'll never get there. You'll never get there. Start off by saying, yes, it's part of this process. We are going to get there. We're going to make it happen. Then we will work for it and we will make it happen. So I think, when I speak to college students, when I tell this story, it resonates with them. Because they feel like they're part of something much larger, and this is their future, right? And we know that almost half of the vegans are below the age of 30. So it is a youth-led movement. And it's almost 3/4 of the vegans are women. So it's a young women who are leading the movement. Young women like my granddaughter, they are leading the movement. So it's our duty to serve them. That's the way I see my whole project. I am doing a job for my granddaughter, for my granddaughter's generation. Yeah? It's my responsibility as an engineer to build a civilization that matches the culture. A civilization is an implementation. A culture is a specification. So when an implementation does not match the specification, it's the job of an engineer to fix all the bugs, and make sure it does. And that's what she told me. She basically said, this is how the Pinky Promise story even happened. She said, why are people eating my family? Make them stop. When will you make them stop? Because I told her it's my job to make them stop, don't cry. And she said, if it's your job, you haven't done your job. When will you do your job? And I said, 2026, I'm stuck.
Yeah, thank you very much. That's a very helpful answer.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think for our generation, this is our responsibility, is to leave a legacy that our children will look back on and say, thank you. Thank you for doing that. And so this gives us an opportunity to really become heroes for our children and grandchildren, or become, someone that they'll revile forever, right? If we don't do it right. So we need to get it right. And it's pretty easy, actually. A lot of people, in their hearts, they're already vegan. So we ask people, would you ever deliberately hurt an innocent animal unnecessarily? They all say no. Then I say, you're vegan. So all we are asking you to do is to come into alignment with who you really are. Right? Make sure your actions match your words. And then it becomes their journey. They say, yeah, we want to be there too. So it's how we frame it matters a lot. So the framing of the story, and then the game. We have to work on a game that is an open source game that everyone can feel like they are treated fairly in the game. Everyone around the world should feel like they're treated fairly in the game. Then there'll be buy-in from humanity for this new game. If we make this game also the same old game, it's a secret, who owns these companies? Who would buy this game, right? Who wants that game? That's the game you're playing right now. And it's not that we bought into this game. We were born into this game. No one asked us for our permission. That's the game we have been playing all along. Right? And so now we are questioning that game, saying, hey, that game is killing us. It's destroying our planet, destroying life. So why should we continue playing that game? So let's work on this new game, and then we can play this new game in parallel with the old game. And eventually people will say, I think I only want to play the new game and not the old game anymore. So that's how you transition from the old to the new. And the beauty of it is, no one can stop us from playing the new game. Because we are just measuring our own ecological footprint. So what's your problem? But in the process, we change our consumption patterns. Okay? So we start consuming less and less, and making sure that we are within the ecological footprint that's allowed to us, and we'll become happier and happier too. That's the beauty of this game. You can play the game and realize that you are getting happier and happier. And then you will want to play that game. So to me, this is just an engineering project. So I see it as an engineering project. At first, I thought when my granddaughter told me, make sure that the world is vegan by 2026, she made me promise that. Okay, she I gave her a pinky promise, and I didn't even know what it meant. And she told me after I gave her a pinky promise, she said, you can never ever break a pinky promise. And she was 6 years old at that time, right? And I said, oh, wait a minute, what did I promise now, that I'll make the whole world go vegan by 2026? And then I thought, who am I to make such a promise? And then, the more I studied it, I realized I'm an engineer. It's my job to make sure that the implementation matches the specifications. So this is why, I have to be in the forefront of making it happen. I have to help people see where there are mismatches and how you can make things match, because that's the role of an engineer, especially a systems engineer.
We have some questions in the chat box.
Okay.
One, they're kind of around this, the new game. One is, when is kind of a timeline for Aquarius starting, and also more information on the K-Mama app. Is that up anywhere?
Right. The K-Mama app is being worked on right now. We have the first draft of it ready, and we are just looking through and figuring out that there are no bugs in it before we deploy it. So it's going to be there's a website called foodhealers.org that it will be on, and K-Mama app will going to be deployed at first in Phoenix. We're going to try it out, and then we are going to come to all of you and ask you to try it out. And the idea there is to make sure that people don't go hungry in our own community. If there are hungry people in our community, make sure that they have whole foods, plant-based meals available for free that they could eat. So I feel like that's the least we can do as a community. And we can either do that through our own, we can cook for them and give it to them, or we can pay a restaurant to give them the food. So that's how the app is designed. Okay, so I actually tried that out. I mean, I cooked for a family of 5 people for 10 days, and I got a lot out of it. I mean, first of all, I had to think about every meal and I figure out what I'm going to cook tomorrow, And so I was able to create meals that would fill their stomachs, and at the same time make them appreciate whole food plant-based meals, right? So I had to think of those recipes, and it turns out that PCRM has been working on that, and they have a whole list of recipes that they call universal meal recipes that are whole food plant-based and that don't use any allergens, so that you can pretty much cook for anyone and they can eat it. So I did that, and then, and of course, then the husband got a job, and so they no longer have a hunger problem, at least. So they're able to take care of themselves, and they were so grateful. So it's created a bond between us that I never expected, and someone I didn't even know, right? So I think by doing that kind of service, we actually strengthen the bonds within our community, much more than we do by just paying a restaurant to fill their needs. So yeah, it is being worked on now, and so hopefully within a couple of weeks we're going to try it out with people, and then we're going to deploy it in more and more cities as we iron out all the bugs.
Awesome, thanks. Tanya, did you have a question that you wanted to ask?
Unmute. Hi, everybody. I love this that I know so many people in this group. It's so awesome. Hi, Dr. Rao. Thank you so much for being here. You are such an amazing speaker. The fact that you can take such dire information and make it like somehow I still feel positive after hearing you speak is mind-blowing. Like it's such a downhill thing, but then like you just turn it around and make us feel hopeful and make us feel powerful, which is really great. Thank you so much for that, because it's just so hard. It's so hard, such hard information to know,
Mm-hmm.
But I was just wondering, I'm not sure if this is like your wheelhouse or whatever, but I was just wondering if you had any advice for like us regular people that interact with people who might not be having any kind of like wokeness or awareness about any of these things that they're actively contributing to. And that's the thing that I have a hard time, is just like, you just see it everywhere you go. You see it everywhere you go. You see it in water bottles people are drinking. You see it in their food choices. You see it in everything. Right. And sometimes it's like and I mean, I'm vegan, I'm outspoken, I'm an activist. I definitely do this anyway, but like, it's still kind of hard for people, like, how do we reach those people? Because there are so many people. I don't want to just be a vegan that's preaching to the choir. I don't want to just share something and constantly talk to people who are already doing as much as they can. I didn't know if you had any advice on that or anything as far as like,
Yeah, what I found is that through food, you reach people's hearts through food. And by offering food to the community, okay, what I found, I mean, just offering food to this family of 5, okay, when they were in a need. See, right now, there are a lot of people coming and getting food boxes from food banks, right? But most of them don't know what to do with that food, because mostly they're getting vegan food in the food banks, because those are the foods that don't go bad very easily. Is rice and beans. They last a long time, right? So that's what they get. And they just boil the rice and the beans and they eat it, you know? But that's not what we do. I mean, we add spices, we make a lot of good things with our food, right? So by offering food, it's easier to reach people's hearts. So this family that I fed, they were not vegan at all. They had no clue what they were getting. But at the end of those 10 days, they wanted my recipes. And they were grateful for the food they got. And they wanted to know why I eat the way I eat. So we started this conversation, and it was actually multilingual conversation. I don't even know Spanish. So I was using Google Translate, you know, typing things in and getting the Spanish version of it and putting it out there for them. So that connection that happened is making them go vegan. You know, and think about it, and then talk to their community about it. These are Guatemalans, you know, who didn't know about it. So, because we have all been colonized, you know, in this current game, we've all been colonized. It's just a few families that are running the whole show. Right? And I think they're also colonized, if you ask me, because they're stuck playing this game. So everyone is playing a role in this game, in the current game. And so as part of that, we have destroyed, you know, we're destroying a lot of things, but in the process, we have created something too, which is the thing that that my granddaughter forced me to see. You know, when she was born, I had no idea that this is what was going on, but she made me go look at the science and understand the early Anthropocene hypothesis of Bill Rediman, read his books, so that I could tell a story in which we do belong exactly as we are. I don't know if that was helpful. Cooking for people, you know, to me, that's the best way to reach people.
Yeah, thank you.
I want to add, I don't know how to get people to watch them necessarily, but from the 2019 VOMAD survey, we know that full-length documentaries are the #1 reason why people went vegan. So just recommending documentaries, I think, could be a good way where, like, you aren't the one giving, you aren't the messenger necessarily. They get to do it on their own time. But I think, again, I don't know how to get them to do it, but that kind of strategy maybe.
Yeah, thanks, Suzanne. I mean, that's a great point. You know, getting people to, if you can give them Cowspiracy to watch, or What the Health to watch. Those are the top 2 documentaries that made people go vegan in the WOMAD survey. And I can actually put so if you go to cowspiracy.com and you type in this code called climate, hold on a second, into everyone in meeting. So that's the code, climate vegan. So if you type that code, you'll get I mean, they can watch it for free. They don't have to go, even if they don't have Netflix. Right now it's on Netflix for free. You can watch it on Netflix. But if they say they don't have Netflix, give them this code. They can go to cowspiracy.com and type in the code and watch it for free.
No, Kim shared her thanks in the chat, and she had to leave, it looks like. Are there any other questions?
Dr. Rao?
Yes.
Can you explain a little more about Keith's nightmare?
Oh, the caged migrant kids nightmare, yeah.
Can you explain that a little more?
We see this here in Arizona. People who are trying to cross the border are put in cages, literally. Especially the kids are separated from their parents. And the kids are, they're devastated, right? Because they lost their parents. But this is like a lesson. We are sort of teaching them a lesson that they should never come through the border illegally. That's why we are doing it. Okay? And to me, that's horrible that we do that. When we have all these ideals that we talk about, all men are created equal and all these good things that we say, but what we do there is awful for the kids.
Thank you. Also, I think in a previous talk you explained about a country. I think that in 1918 they went vegan, and they kind of prevented their citizens from going diseases. Do you remember that?
That may have been Dr. McDougall's presentation.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. That was actually during World War I, I believe. Yeah, was it World War I or World War II?
World
War I. Yeah, I think it was Denmark. Denmark went vegan, and so their health improved. Hardly anyone died because of this, because of the war. But in the adjacent country, Germany, they were rationing meat to people because they thought it was essential. And so many, I don't know how many, but a few 100,000 people died of starvation in Germany. And Denmark didn't have that problem. Literally, you can grow plant foods almost anywhere. We can all do it. Even within our homes, we can start growing things. So it gives us the power. We take back control of our food system. And we go vegan and we start growing our own food. So the new system a thriving, sustainable system has to be built on a foundation of healthy, nutritious food being available for free, literally. Okay, nutritious food has to be available for very little or free. Because right now we are subsidizing food that makes us sick. Because that's what the system is. And we even label those the slaughterhouses as critical infrastructure, which is ridiculous. We are making people go and work there and kill themselves. For what? So if this is a war we are fighting with the COVID-19, we're not conducting the war very well. We're letting the virus win, literally. Because those people get sick and then they go spread it. So you might as well be an agent for COVID-19 by opening these slaughterhouses.
Well, all right. Are there any other questions here today? If not, thank you everyone for joining us. This presentation will be posted on the Vegan World 2026 YouTube channel.
And we'll send it to Rob and Tom if you guys would like it for your organizations too. Great.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you so much. It was very enlightening. Thank you so much. Have a good day.
You too.
Thanks, Rob and Tom, for bringing him over to us.
Oh, thank you for
Thank you, Rob.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rob.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you, Tom.
Bye, guys.
Thank you,
Bye.
Dr. Ross.
Talk
Thank you.
again.
Thank you.